last night was really good. We're back here at church this morning, but I just wanted to give a report about the youth conference last night. We had a really good time, and the presence of God was just awesome there. We had 2 people give their lives to the Lord. One guy, he rededicated his life to the Lord. He had a really interesting testimony. He had come to the Lord years ago. The Lord called him to ministry, and he felt called to be a pastor, but then over time he backslid, and actually last night just the Holy Spirit was moving and convicted him of the backsliding, and so he actually gave his life back to the Lord. So it was really cool, and we got church this morning. We're about to go speak, and my stomach is still flipping. I mean, it's still just turning over. I had a pretty rough night last night, but we're here, gonna preach the gospel, and as you can see how beautiful it is. It's a little bit overcast, but it's beautiful here at the church. Got my boys there in the back, the church right behind us, and I think we're gonna have a good service this morning.
Oh, cold. What are you doing? Video recording?
Yep.
No.
Say hi, Lucas.
Hi. Peace. Lady!
So, one of the questions that a lot of people ask, especially whenever they're thinking about getting into missions, is what is the most difficult thing for you as a missionary? Usually people think that it's the food or it's the cultures. You know, we're eating all kinds of weird stuff. If you've been watching my videos before, then you have, you know that my stomach's been really messed up for the past few days. And so, you know, we eat all kinds of weird things in Colombia. You know, we were eating iguana in Thailand and Nepal. We basically ate curry and rice for every single meal. And in Nepal, they would actually take they believe that all of the flavor comes from the bones in the chicken. So whenever you eat your rice and curry with chicken, you end up with tons of little pieces of bone in it. And so you have to be really careful. And so, you know, the travel, you know, whenever we went to Thailand, we spent 3 days traveling. You know, you spend 3 days sitting in airplanes and airports and layovers, all that kind of stuff. So that's always the big question. What is really difficult? You know, people say it must, you know, maybe it's the lack of finances, because as a missionary, we live off of support. You know, I don't have a salary. Everything is based on, you know, donations and stuff. So what is the most difficult part? Well, behind me, you're looking at it. The most difficult part of being a missionary, for me personally, and I think a lot of other missionaries would agree with me, is whenever you have children. Not that the children are difficult. You know, my kids are great. You can see they're playing and, you know, having fun. But what makes it difficult is, as a parent, you want the best for them. As a parent, you want your kids to be doing well. You want them to be, you know, their education and they're growing healthy and all that kind of stuff. But the struggle is, for me personally, you know, my kids, just like most, they want to have their best friends. Well, when you're in missions and you're traveling all the time, your kids don't get to have those best friends. You know, that my son has gotten really close to kids, you know, for 2 or 3 months, and then those kids leave, and that's it. They don't see them again. You know, it's very rare that they get to actually see their friends again. So I mean, my 2 boys are playing together, but they have, you know, a really broad age difference. So, you know, my oldest son, he's kind of started really making his friends online. You know, he meets friends, and then they play these online games for homeschoolers, and then they get together and they play together, and that's how his friendships are. They're almost all long distance online friendships. It's really difficult for me because I want them to have, you know, their friends, and I want them to be able to socialize with the same kids, but they're constantly having new friends, new kids, and that's difficult for me. The other part, of course, is the education. You know, we homeschool our kids, which works really well for us because we travel all the time, but there's still that lack of having the classmates. There's that lack of stability in the things that they're doing. So really, for those of you who are just wondering, you know, what makes it difficult with missions, a lot of people, especially when it comes to family, they think that the finances is the hardest part. And finances are hard. It does get really tight sometimes, that's for sure. There's been many times when my wife and I, you know, we've been living out of the extra coin jar, you know, the change jar that we have in our room. You know, we've lived off of that. But really, you know, God always provides. And we've never, even though we've been down to the wire a few times, in the end, He always provides for us. And so what it comes down to is the boys, it comes down to them not having the kind of friendships that they need and want, and trying to spend time with them and be a blessing to them. As their dad, I try to be their friend, I try to play with them, but it's still not the same as having a kid your own age. So that's it, that's the challenge. So if you're thinking about getting into missions, keep that in mind and be thinking about ways to alleviate that. A lot of missionaries end up leaving the field because they decide in the end, largely because they're kids, they leave the field because they're going to go take care of their children, they're going to take them back home until they go make it through high school, and then they go back to the mission field. And so that's not the decision we've made. We're going to keep going in the direction God's brought us, and I have nothing against missionaries who do. I completely understand it, but it is something to think about. So be blessed. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe. Any comments below, any questions about parenting on the mission field, I'll be happy to answer. And stay tuned, there's a lot more adventure to come. Now, on the flip side of all of this, one of the most awesome things about being a parent in missions is seeing your kids grow up with the experiences that my children have grown up with, being able to travel the world, and also seeing them develop in ministry with you. This has just been the most awesome thing. Especially my oldest son, Elias, he's been with my wife and I. Obviously, we had him a year after we got married, so he's been with us through this pretty much from the beginning. And he's been all over the world now, all over the Americas, I should say. And right now he really wants to travel with me to places like Turkey and Thailand, all this kind of stuff, and he will. I'll take him with me eventually. But as he grows in his heart for ministry, his heart for missions, to see him, like today, I'm going to be preaching in the church service here in Guatemala. My wife is doing the children's program. My oldest son, Elias, he's going to be there helping her in that program. Those kinds of things are awesome. Whenever my son, when we've been in prayer meetings and he goes up and he lays hands on people and he prays for them and prophesies over them, that's an amazing thing to see as a parent. And it's really an experience. The fact that my son has been to Argentina, and the fact that he's been, when we did our last speaking tour through the States this year, he got to go to all these different churches and preach and be with the children. And he, almost everywhere he went, when he would go into the children's programs, they would ask him to speak. And so he would share about missions and share about the things that he's seen God do. And it's just been awesome to see how God has naturally been developing him. And my youngest boy, Lucas, he's 4, he'll be 5 in just a few days. And he's a really energetic little boy, and I know that God has a lot of things for him, and I'm really excited to see the way that God is going to use him. But it's just a blessing. That is just one awesome thing, to have that experience with your children and have them actually be able to experience it with you from the time they're little. Whenever I was a kid, I was inspired to be a missionary because my grandma told missionary stories, and I read books about missionaries, and I thought, oh man, that's what I want to do. That's amazing. But my children get to actually live it. I had to wait until I was 16 whenever I first left home to go onto the mission field with YWAM. But my boys, from the time they were born, they get to be a part of this. And so it's just such a blessing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. Go. Oh, you beat me.
Me toca. Pensé que yo tengo guantes.
Guantes, okay. Un momento. No.
I turned.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it, Lucas. Oh, good job.
¿Por qué siempre por qué el Lucas hace así, ve?
See, yeah, he likes to do it he likes to put his hand in there like that. Elias, what are you doing?
Preparing my thumbs.
Preparing your thumbs? Are you ready to lose?
No. Are you ready to lose? Old man.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
I declare a thumb war. Haja! Haja!
Oh no, you don't. No, you don't. No. This is the epic part. No.
Hey, stop putting your hand out.
No, I had you. No.
I turned.
Champion!
I turned.
You ready?
Yep.
I got prepared.
Oh no, you're so you're too strong.
All right. All right, my thumb.
Okay, we're going left hand now,
All right.
which is sad because I'm left-handed and he isn't, but he thinks he's gonna do better left-handed. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a
No.
thumb up.
No. Come on, old man. Do something hard on me.
Come on, boy.
No.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. I win this thumb war. Boom. In your face, child.
I should have won.
You ready? Okay.
All right.
One more time. One more time. 1. You won. Good job.
Someday I'll get ya.
Good job.
Someday I'll get you back.
So hey, if you like this video, please, what do we want them to do?
Subscribe.
Yeah, we want them to subscribe and
I don't know.
make any comments or questions or anything like that.
Yeah.
And we gotta go to church, so we'll talk to you guys later. Hola.
Ay, Dios, ¿cuántos años tienes? Ten tu dulce, tu galleta. ¿Quieres?
Yo me colaría por las tablas.
Ten, hermano, le voy a dar.
Quizás se puede. Yo dije al pastor y él estaba de acuerdo. Yo dije, ¿por qué no lo probamos? Lo peor que puede pasar es que vienen 40 y tenemos que echar a los demás. Y tú tienes pena y yo me voy, lo siento. Porque yo me voy, yo soy misionero. Entonces, el pastor estaba de acuerdo. Él dijo, ok, está bien, hermano, vamos a probarlo. Entonces ahí llamamos todo el pueblo.
En poco tiempo fue electo como niño diputado en Guatemala. Así fue, ¿verdad? Y fue al Congreso.